So, Matt, you have made Tony Timpa rather famous this week, a name I had never heard of. I live in Dallas. I didn't even know this story. Tell the story of Tony Timpa.
Yeah, Tony Timpa was a white man who was also killed by police. This happened a few years ago, back in 2016. Very similar situation. The video's out there now, the body cam footage. Very similar situation to George Floyd. He was being arrested. They were on top of him. He couldn't breathe. He said many times, I can't breathe. I'm going to die. They didn't listen to him. He died on the pavement, and after he died, the police officers were cracking jokes. Now they might have not have known that he was dead, but they knew he was unconscious, and they thought it was very funny. They did not give him. They did not administer anything medical wise. The other part of this is that Tony Timpa, make it even more outrageous. Tony Timpa suffered from mental illness. He called the police to come help him. He realized that he was on the verge of, he'd been off his medication. He knew he needed help. He did what you're supposed to do, and he called the police to come help him, and they killed him instead. And, it's just totally horrifying. It's at least as bad as George Floyd, if not worse. And yet,
I think I have to tell you, I think it's worse because he wasn't in a criminal act. We have to separate the act from the killing. They are two separate things. But here's a totally innocent guy who is calling and saying, help me, and they kill him. That's more insane than he thought he was.
Exactly. And yet, and this is not about whataboutism or anything like that. I'm not trying to score points or make this into a racial scorecard thing. We're just pointing out that these sorts of things happen all the time to people who are not black. Daniel Shaver's another case that I've mentioned, a little bit more well known, but that video is just the worst thing I've ever seen. If you haven't seen the video of Daniel Shaver and you want to see it, I warn you.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But he was killed, shot dead by police while begging for his life on his knees. I mean, that's what they said happened to Michael Brown. It didn't happen to Michael Brown. That was a lie. It actually did happen to Daniel Shaver on his knees, begging for his life, saying, don't kill me, and they shot him. White man, and this kind of thing happens all the time. The important point is that the police brutality is a real problem, in my opinion. There's a real problem with the way sometimes the police go about things, even though it's a minority of cases, but it does happen. I don't think there's any reason to believe at all, actually, that it's racially motivated. I don't think it has anything to do with race, the vast majority of cases. I think it's power trip. I think it's sometimes police officers don't value human life as much as they should. And then also sometimes this idea that, there are some cops who don't want to take any chances at all with their own lives, none at all, and so they'd rather kill you than take any chance whatsoever. Now, fortunately, most cops don't operate that way. Some do, and I think that's what leads to Daniel Shaver, Tony Timpa, George Floyd, and many of these other cases. If we're going to go further than that and say that this person was killed because of their race, because this cop hated him because he was black, you're going to need some evidence for that, and the evidence cannot be that the person died, because we know that happens to white people too. Happens to more white people. You need more evidence. I mean, maybe the cop who killed George Floyd was racist. Is there any evidence of that? Do we have anything else aside from the video of George Floyd dying? If we don't, and you're going around saying he was racist, that is irresponsible, reckless, and you have no reason to be saying it other than maybe you want it to be true for your narrative.
Hey, Matt, it's Pat Gray. Do you know if any of the police officers were charged in this death? Did anybody was anybody brought to justice over Tony Timpa?
I know in the case of Daniel Shaver, nobody was. There was no conviction.
Wow.
And I believe that was the case for Tony Timpa as well.
This is amazing. They were joking. They thought he was asleep. They tried to wake him. It's time for school. Wake up. I don't want to go to school. 5 more minutes, Mom, said the other officer. They joke about buying him new shoes for the first day of school, making him special breakfast, laughing loudly. He's dead. And there was nobody that even cared about this story. Nobody that even cared. So I think this says, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, you're not playing whataboutism. You are saying that there is a problem with the police departments, but not all police departments are not all police. But there is something to be said for the brutality that sometimes happens with with certain cops.
Yeah, exactly. And if we want to really, if we're serious about addressing the problem, then we have to first diagnose it correctly. And if we're insisting on this racial narrative, then we can't possibly diagnose it correctly, because then if we're saying, well, this is all racial, then what the hell are we going to say about Tony Timpa and Daniel Shaver and the others? We have, how does that doesn't fit with the theory. So there's obviously something else going on here. And I think that's how we have to look at it. And, by the way, twice as many white people are killed by cops every year as black people. Of course, there are many more white people in the country, so you could always point that out. But it's still, if it's true that cops are racist, out hunting for black people to kill, which is what we're told by BLM, you would not expect, based on that theory, to find out that there are twice as many white people killed by cops. It doesn't work with the racist cop theory, does it? But that's the fact. And so, again, I think it just means that we need a different explanation other than the racial one to get to the bottom of the police brutality issue.
Host of the Matt Walsh Show on the Daily Wire, good friends of ours, Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire, the Matt Walsh Show. You should check it out. Also, the author of Church of Cowards. His name is Matt Walsh. You follow him on Twitter at Matt Walsh Blog. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.